I'm going to turn this simple gazebo birdhouse into a high-end vintage decor piece using just decoupage, air dry clay, and a few unexpected techniques. There's one detail I added that completely changed everything. Hello, my crafty friends. I'm Donna from Mason Creations, etc. And welcome to my channel. If you're ready, my friends, let's make a mess. Is this little gazebo birdhouse adorable or what? I'm going to do some really fun techniques on this one, so make sure you stick around. The first thing I'm going to do is give all the edges a quick sanding with fine sandpaper to smooth them all out a bit. I'm using paint in the color Palmetto as a base color to paint the roof and the little porch. I'm getting the edges of the roof and up under it as well. I'm also painting the underside of the gazebo. I'm not going to do much but paint the underside since you'll never see it. I'm going to be doing a really cool technique on these areas in a little bit. This is going to just be the base color. I'm adding some other colors as well. These colors are going to be peekaboo. I'm adding some light turquoise paint very haphazardly. I'm just swishing it around here and there without a care in the world how it winds up on there. I'm going to do the same thing with some copper paint, but I'm going to do a technique over these colors that's going to hide most of it, but little patches will peek through. Like this little birdhouse has been painted many colors over the years, but the paint is old and worn out, chipping and cracking, but all the little birds still love their home regardless. Where are you all watching from, my crafty friends? Let me know in the comments. I just love to see what cities and countries all my friends are watching from. I'm filming from sunny Las Vegas, Nevada in the United States. I'm using Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color cotton to paint the walls of the gazebo white. I'm going to be doing some decoupage, so I need them to be a nice crisp white. Make sure you always paint white or a very light off-white wherever you're going to decoupage rice paper or a napkin. White allows the colors of your images to look more vibrant. Dark colors will make your images look dark and muddy. This and all the products you're going to see me use today came from decoupagenapkins.com, my wonderful sponsors. This paper is so pretty with all the foliage and little birds. I'm going to add one to each section of wall on the gazebo. I'm using a water brush to separate the ones I'm going to use. A water brush has a cartridge that you fill with water and then brush it on the napkin or rice paper. The water dispenses easily, so this is really convenient. You always want to tear your rice paper or napkin instead of cutting it. A torn edge is much easier to blend than a sharp cut edge. There's a perch in front that I'm going to have to work around. I put the paper over it and marked where to make a hole. I'm only going to do every other section of wall and let it dry before moving on to the other 3 walls. And you'll see exactly why I'm doing it this way in just a few minutes. I'm using Polyvine Heavy Duty Varnish in a satin finish as my decoupage adhesive today. Polyvine dries to the touch in 1 hour and is completely cured in less than a week. It dries crystal clear and will never yellow. All the Polyvine formulas can be used as decoupage adhesive, so feel free to use whichever one you have on hand. I'm misting the paper with a little water. This particular brand of paper will expand when it's put on the wet glue. So I spray it first and let it do its thing, then glue it to my piece, avoiding any wrinkles. I misted a piece of a Ziploc bag and laid it over the paper. I'm using a dry paper towel over top of the plastic to smooth out any wrinkles or bubbles. I did the same thing with the other 2 wall sections. Because you're watching this video today, DecoupageNapkins.com is going to give you a 10% discount on one order that's a minimum of at least $50. This is a one-time discount and is good on your entire order when you use the code MASON10 in all caps at checkout. So now you can get that mold you've been eyeing or some additional rice papers you've been wanting. Even if you've been ordering from them in the past, you can still take advantage of this one-time 10% discount when using the code above. I'll leave all this information for you in my description box below. To find my description box, click on the word more just below the title of this video. Now I'm going to let these dry for a couple of hours before continuing. I always make the rice paper or napkin a little bit longer than what I'm going to need so that I can get a nice clean edge. I'm going to do this with a medium grit sandpaper. I'm running the sandpaper over the edge of my piece in a downward motion. Make sure you don't go upward, you'll risk lifting your rice paper or napkin. The sandpaper cuts off the paper, leaving a very clean edge. I used a pair of scissors to remove the paper from the hole. Then I sanded it as well to remove any rough edges. And this is why I was only able to do 3 wall sections at a time. It would have made sanding the edges just about impossible. Now I'll decoupage the other 3 sides and let them dry for a couple hours. Any of the products I use in my videos are wonderful products that I personally believe in, so you can bet that each one is a great product. Everything I use will be listed in my description box below. Each one will have a blue link, so they're easy for you to find. Any links I provide are safe for you to click on. To find my description box, click on the word more just below the title of this video. I added one more cute little bird by the entrance. I'm going to blend some paint into the rice paper now. I'm using Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color Magnolia, Pentart Country Green, Pine Green, as well as Palmetto and Espresso Brown. I'm mixing the paints together and dabbing them on. I'm blending different colors, going back and forth with all the colors until I'm happy with the way it looks. This is basically ombre painting. If you want to see a video on exactly how to paint ombre, click the banner in the top right corner of your screen. I'll leave you a link in my description box for that video as well. DecoupageNapkins.com has an amazing selection of napkins, and the best part is that you can purchase them individually. They carry a wide range of craft supplies, including rice paper, paints, clay, molds, and an excellent selection of polyvine products. With thousands of items available and new products being added regularly, it's truly a one-stop shop for crafters. Orders are carefully packed and shipped quickly. You'll earn bonus points on orders over $100. Additional offers may vary and are often seasonal, so be sure to check their website. You'll find any promotions displayed in a banner at the top of their homepage. Subscribe to their newsletter by entering your email address to receive 10% off your next order. This discount is separate from the MASON10 code and may be used on an additional purchase. I'll leave links to all the products I use in the description box below. Please note that all offers are subject to change. To find my description box, click on the word more below the title of this video. When blending paints, I normally use a sponge. However, this is such a small area that it was easier to just dab the paint with a small brush. And I bet you're wondering when I'm going to do something with that roof. That's coming up in just a few minutes. Stand by. And then I let this dry for about 30 minutes. I'm giving everything I just painted a coat of my satin varnish. I want to protect everything I just did. And then I'll let that dry for about an hour. Okay, here we go. I'm using Crackle texture paste to give the roof and porch a very raggedy and distressed finish. I'm using my palette knife to apply it. I'm putting it on thick in some places and scraped thin in other places. And some places I'm completely missing spots. The worse you put this on, the better it's going to look in the end. It's going to crack in some places and you'll see the terrible paint job underneath. But all of that is what's so much fun. I'm making sure to get the under edges of the roof. I let the roof dry for a few hours so I could handle the piece. And look at all those really cool cracks. You can see all the green, blue, and copper paint showing through. It looks so awesome. Now I'm doing that same technique on the little porch and catching the edges as well. If you should get any of the texture on the decoupaged area, not to worry. They've been varnished, so anything will wipe right off with a damp Q-tip. I'll let this dry for several hours. I'm sanding off any sharp little points as well as smoothing out the edges. I sanded the roof as well as the porch. I'm using my favorite, Doss clay, to make some embellishments for this project. Doss clay is so easy to work with, dries quickly, and has very little shrinkage or cracking when dry. It's perfect for making molded pieces. After pressing the clay into the mold, I'm scraping off the excess with my palette knife. Now I'm smoothing the clay out with some water. Then I'll put them in the freezer for 20 minutes. Freezing the clay makes it rigid, so they just pop out of the mold easily. No fragile pieces will break off. Fresh out of the freezer, watch how easily these just pop out of the molds. No delicate little pieces will break off. They are frozen solid, so I'll need to let them thaw for a few minutes, but not in the mold. I'm going to use Aleene's tacky glue to add my molded clay to my piece. I need to add this while the clay is still wet so it'll conform to the piece as it dries. This is the best glue I've found for attaching wet clay. If any glue seeps out from under the clay, I'm removing it right away with a clean, damp brush. I'm also pressing down all the edges of the clay very delicately to make sure they're all connecting with the piece. I used my palette knife to cut these to size. I'm going to put them along each ridge of the roofline. I love this trim because each little bead has wood grain on it, so it's just perfect for this piece. I laid each piece of clay along the ridge and tucked the end of it under the roof. I pinched the clay to somewhat of a point at the top, so all 6 pieces would lay together easily. I had one of my crafty friends ask me what the little yellow brush was that I used to spread the glue. You're going to love this, my friends. It's a silicone makeup brush. Glue doesn't stick to it at all and washes off easily. If it dries on there, it just peels off. Someone watching one of my videos told me about this quite a while ago, and it's a genius idea. If you're watching, I'm so sorry I can't remember your name, but thank you for such awesome advice. I'm going to let this dry overnight. I used an additional mold to make some really pretty leaves. I'm going to glue them on one section of the roof, overlapping them over each other as well as the ridges on the roof, and I'm leaving some of them hanging off the edge of the roof. I put some of my tacky glue on the back of a silicone mold. Again, it easily wipes or peels right off, just like the silicone brush. In most of my videos, you'll see me using a lot of different tools that make life so much easier. Things like a turquoise cup cradle to keep round objects from getting away, a bodabra that makes bows in a snap, a water brush for separating rice paper and napkins, small art brushes for fine detail work, palette knives, and a rhinestone picker. If you're interested in checking out any of these items, you can find them listed in my description box below, in my favorite tools section. So I'm going to let this dry overnight. The leaves are getting painted with all the same colors that I used to blend in the rice paper. I added a little water to thin it out, and I'm just going to swish colors all over. I'm putting 2 or more colors on some of the leaves. I'm throwing the paint on there very haphazardly, but I'm making sure not to get any paint on the roof. I don't want to mess up any of that beautiful crackle. I just want to take a moment, all of my crafty friends, to say thank you for watching this video. If you're enjoying the content, it would be great if you could take a quick second and hit the like and hype buttons. I appreciate you for doing that. I have some awesome new projects coming up, so don't forget to subscribe. And I made sure to get all the white edges around all of the leaves. I did a little dry brushing with the light green to give the leaves some highlights. To dry brush, dip the tips of your brush in the paint and wipe off almost all of it on a paper towel. You literally want your paintbrush almost dry. Then lightly swipe just the tips over the high points. This will give you some really nice highlights, but nothing compared to the additional highlights I'm going to add in just a little bit. It just might take your breath away. And then I let this dry for about 30 minutes. I'm painting the trim edges on the roof with Pentart White Coffee. I love this color, and it's going to make a nice soft base color for the faux wood trim. It'll look really beautiful once it gets antiqued. You'll be able to see all that wood grain in the little beads. I used my fine detail brush to get in between some tight areas. I let the paint dry for about 30 minutes, and then I gave the entire piece a coat of satin varnish. I'm going to be doing an antiquing process, and I need a shiny surface for it to work properly. After applying the varnish, I let it dry for an hour before proceeding with the antique. Okay, friends, let's start antiquing. I'm using Folk Art Premixed Antique in the color Wooden Bucket Brown. I put a little bit in a tiny paper cup and then added a little water to make it thinner. I prefer my antiques a little runny. I'm brushing my antique on the piece, going over and around all the embellishments. I'm doing this in sections and wiping the antique off with a soft dry cloth right away before it can dry. Because of the gloss finish, it will wipe off the surface and stay in all the cracks and crevices, showing the details of the mold. Antiquing gives your embellishments some depth and dimension, making everything look 3D instead of flat. What a difference it makes. Everything just comes to life now. I'm getting up under the roof to give it a shadow. The line between the gazebo walls and the porch, as well as on the wall, porch, and roof edges. I added some around the leaves to cause some shadows there too. This is going to give everything a grungy, distressed look, like this little birdhouse has been around for years and years. I let the antique dry for a couple hours, and now I'm going to add my final sealer. I'm using the satin finish for the leaves and the trim I put on the roof edges. I also added another coat to the gazebo walls. Those are the only places that will have the satin finish. If you've been using Polyvine products, you're going to notice that they've changed all the labels and some of the product names. The heavy-duty wood varnish is now heavy-duty varnish, and the heavy-duty extreme varnish is now exterior extreme varnish. I hope you love and enjoy these products as much as I do. For the cracked roof and little porch, I'm using the heavy-duty varnish, but I'm using the dead flat finish. I'm making sure not to get any of the dead flat varnish on any of the leaves, trim, or walls. Since the roof and porch are so distressed, I thought I'd go with the matte finish instead of the satin. Making it look shiny and new would defeat the look I was going for. But it needed a final sealer to protect all the antique and distressing I added. I let my varnish dry for an hour, and now I'm adding a bronze ball chain to the separation where the gazebo walls meet the porch. Adding the chain like that gives a nice finished appearance. It's kind of like adding baseboard where your walls meet your tile or carpet. And I'll let this dry for a couple hours. I'm going to add a fabulous warm coppery glow to this entire project. I'm using a wax rub in the color Firebird. This step is going to completely change the way this looks right now. I'm putting a small amount of the rub on my finger and rubbing it together with my thumb. Smearing it around like that prevents a large amount of your product ending up in one place. I'm brushing my finger just along all the high points on the leaves and roof trim. Then I ran my finger along all the corners of the walls, roof line, and porch, any and all edges and corners. I used a very tiny brush to add a little over the tops of the ball chain. This whole gazebo has such a warm coppery glow now. You won't need to seal this project again. Wax rubs are a sealer in itself and do not need to be sealed. This will always be the last thing you add to your projects. Don't forget, all of the wonderful products I'm using today can be found at my favorite place for craft supplies, decoupagenapkins.com, and I'll leave you links in my description box below. And a tiny bit of Spanish moss glued to the entrance. I've added a link to a video that I think you may enjoy. Click the picture on the right to be taken directly to that video. I'm so happy you were here with me today, and thanks so much for watching. I can't wait to see you all next week. I'm working on a new project with you in mind. You can subscribe by clicking my picture in the top right corner.